The moment, my daughter-in-law raised her glass and announced to an entire backyard full of people that my weekends now belonged to her family, something inside me finally snapped. What hurt even more was hearing my own son stand beside her and threaten me like I was some employee who could be replaced. Everyone expected me to argue, cry, or quietly accept the humiliation. Instead, I smiled and said one word, deal. They thought they had one. What they did not realize was that I had just decided to take my life back. My name is Diane, and at 63 years old, I had spent almost my entire adult life taking care of other people. I raised my son Tyler by myself after my husband passed away when Tyler was only 10. I worked double shifts, skipped vacations, and emptied savings accounts to make sure he never felt the weight of what we had lost. When he married Madison, I welcomed her into the family with open arms. I truly believed that if I loved them hard enough and helped enough, we would always stay close. At first, helping with the grandkids felt natural. They had 5 children in less than 8 years, and life around them constantly looked like a tornado had touched down. I babysat during emergencies, picked kids up from school, bought groceries when money got tight, and even co-signed the lease on their family van because their credit was terrible. I kept telling myself that families support each other. What I ignored were the small moments where gratitude slowly disappeared and entitlement took its place. Madison had a habit of walking into my house without knocking because she had a spare key. Sometimes she would leave the children with me before I even knew she was gone. My pantry slowly became stocked with expensive snacks and juice boxes because apparently the kids liked my house better. Tyler stopped asking for favors and started assuming them. If I ever hesitated, there would always be some reminder about how exhausted they were or how lucky I was to have family nearby. Little by little, my life stopped feeling like my own. That Saturday afternoon was the final straw. Tyler had invited friends and neighbors over for a barbecue, and the backyard was packed with folding chairs, paper plates, and screaming children. I was sitting quietly near the garden, enjoying the sunshine and trying to stay out of the chaos, when Madison suddenly tapped her fork against a glass to get everyone's attention. She stood there smiling like she was making a toast at a wedding. She wrapped one arm around Tyler and laughed loudly. Everyone, we finally figured out how to save our marriage. Starting now, Diane is taking the kids every single weekend, so we can have time to ourselves. I mean, it is not like she has much going on anyway. A few people laughed nervously while others looked down at their drinks. The embarrassment hit me like a slap across the face. Before I could even respond, Tyler folded his arms and stared directly at me. Then he said something I will never forget. Mom, if you refuse to help us, then do not expect us to help you someday either. The entire backyard went silent. Hearing my own son use my future and old age as leverage felt colder than any insult Madison could have thrown at me. In that moment, something inside me became crystal clear. I realized they did not see me as family anymore. They saw me as free labor, free money, and permanent backup support. I calmly set my glass on the table, looked directly at them, and said, "Deal." Then I grabbed my purse and walked out of the yard while Madison laughed triumphantly behind me. The second I got home, I stopped being their safety net. I called a locksmith first thing the next morning and changed every lock in the house. Watching those old keys become useless gave me a strange sense of peace. For years, Madison treated my home like a second branch of hers. Now my front door belonged to me again. After the locksmith left, I cleaned out the pantry that I had been financing for their children. I boxed up the candy, snacks, and drinks and donated everything to a local daycare center. Then I did something I had not done in years. I stocked my kitchen with things I actually liked. Fresh tea, dark chocolate, good cheese, and a few bottles of wine. Tiny choices, but they reminded me that I still existed outside of being someone's grandmother. Meanwhile, my phone would not stop buzzing. Madison kept sending me instructions about what the kids could eat over the weekend and activities I needed to plan. Tyler texted reminders about bedtime schedules. Neither one bothered asking if I had agreed. They simply assumed they owned my time. What they did not know was that I had already booked myself a room at a lakeside spa resort for the weekend. Friday evening arrived, and right on schedule I heard their giant van pull into my driveway. Children shouted outside while doors slammed shut. Instead of answering the front door, I slipped quietly out my back entrance with a small overnight bag and drove away in my little sedan. In my rearview mirror, I saw Madison standing on my porch with 2 kids hanging off her arms while she furiously tried to unlock my door with her old key. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded with calls. "Where are you? The key does not work. You promised." I finally sent one calm message into the family group chat. "I am out of town for the weekend. Have fun, everyone." Then I turned my phone off completely. That night at the resort, I soaked in a lavender bath while imagining the chaos unfolding back home. 5 children, no babysitter, no backup plan. No grandmother waiting to rescue them. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully. The next morning I turned my phone back on and found dozens of angry messages waiting for me. Madison accused me of ruining their marriage. Tyler called me selfish. What stood out most was that neither of them asked if I was okay. They only cared about what they had lost. Sitting on the balcony overlooking the lake, I opened my banking app and stared at the monthly payment for the family van. $650 had quietly drained from my retirement account every month for 3 years. They had promised to reimburse me but stopped after 2 payments. I had kept covering it because I wanted to help. That morning, I deleted the automatic payment. Then I emailed Tyler and explained that they had for weeks to refinance the vehicle themselves before I returned it to the dealership. My hands trembled after I pressed send, but the feeling that followed was not fear, it was relief. When I returned home Sunday afternoon, Tyler and Madison were already waiting on my porch looking furious. Tyler pounded on the door the second he saw me. Madison immediately started yelling about the locks and the car payment. I kept the security chain fastened while speaking through the narrow opening. "You humiliated us," Madison shouted. "No," I answered calmly. "You humiliated me in front of an entire backyard full of people." Tyler stepped forward angrily. "You are acting selfish." I looked him directly in the eye. If taking care of myself is selfish, then maybe I should have started years ago. The hardest part came 2 weeks later when my oldest grandson, Ethan, showed up alone at my door looking hungry. He wandered straight into the kitchen expecting the shelves full of junk food that used to be there. When he realized everything had changed, he quietly admitted his mother told him to come over because there was nothing good at home. That broke my heart. I made him a sandwich and sat with him at the kitchen table. Then I gently explained that I loved him deeply, but Grandma was not a grocery store anymore. I knew Madison had sent him hoping guilt would pull me back into my old role. It almost worked, but boundaries only matter if you keep them. A month later, the van disappeared from their driveway after the dealership repossessed it. Tyler called me furious, complaining they could barely fit all 5 children into their old compact car. I listened quietly before reminding him that I had carried that financial burden alone for years. Still, the real breaking point came during one final conversation. Tyler showed up exhausted one cold morning and begged me to babysit again. When I refused, he finally dropped the mask completely. He told me if I did not help them, they would cut me out of the grandchildren's lives forever. Then he said something that chilled me to the bone. "You are going to die alone." For a second, I felt the old fear rise inside me. The fear that maybe he was right, but then I realized something important. I had already spent years feeling lonely while being constantly used. Being alone was not the worst thing in the world, losing yourself was. I calmly stood up, opened the door, and told him to leave. The months that followed were strangely beautiful. I joined a pottery class, replanted my garden, and started spending time with friends again. My house became peaceful instead of chaotic. Slowly, Tyler and Madison learned how to stand on their own feet because they no longer had another option. A year later, things finally changed for the better. They still visit, but now they call first. The kids come over occasionally, but only when plans are made in advance. Madison never again tried to dictate how I spent my weekends. Tyler stopped treating me like a backup wallet. Most importantly, I finally enjoy being a grandmother again because it is now built on love instead of obligation. Sometimes people think standing up for yourself requires screaming or revenge. It does not. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is quietly stop allowing people to use you. The moment I stopped making myself endlessly available, I discovered who truly respected me and who only valued what I could provide. At 63 years old, I did not lose my family. I simply stopped sacrificing myself to keep everyone else comfortable. And honestly, that was the moment my real life finally began.